He has only been sent to perfect good character. And today we're living for a few moments with one of the phrases from Ayah 9 from Surah Al-Hashr, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. And Allah completes the phrase by saying, وَلَوْ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةً. Now, interestingly enough, I don't know that this was planned, but my one khutbah here during the month of Ramadan was actually on this ayah. So we'll talk a little bit about ithar in general, and then some of the points that I mentioned in the khutbah, inshaAllah. Ithar, you know, in our religion, ukhuwah is a necessity, right? The brotherhood between Muslims is a necessity. The Prophet ﷺ says, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. That none of you completes his or her iman until they love for their brothers and sisters what they love for themselves. Now in general, in human sort of lexicon and religious history, this is similar to the golden rule. The golden rule is, you do unto others what you want to have done unto you. But this hadith of the Prophet about ukhuwah goes a step beyond the golden rule, because it's not about doing. The Prophet ﷺ saying your iman is not complete until in your heart you cultivate a sense of love for your brothers and sisters in this religion. But ithar goes above that even. Ithar is the highest level of brotherhood that can be expressed. Ithar, by definition, is when you give deference to other people's needs over your own. It's when you give deference to other people's needs over your own. Now this context, or this ayah, this phrase was revealed in a general and a specific context. The general context was the Muslims had just expelled one of the Jewish tribes in Medina. And because of this expulsion, the Muslims took on a massive amount of wealth. Many of the lands in Medina were owned by this specific group. Their fortresses were taken over by the Muslims. And the Prophet ﷺ came to the Ansar, who had bankrolled this ummah for all of this time, and given their wealth to their brothers and sisters from the Muhajirun. And the Prophet ﷺ said to them, I want to give this land to the Muhajirun because they haven't gotten anything for themselves since they made the hijrah. And the Ansar's response was, Ya Rasulullah, you can give them this new land, and we repledge our existing land to you. You can also give that to them however you please. And this caused the Muhajirun to say, we've never seen anyone so giving as the Ansar. And this is Allah in this ayah is praising the Ansar. He's describing the Ansar and what made the Ansar so special. وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةً. They gave deference to their brothers and sisters in Islam even though they themselves were in need. The Ansar were not wealthy themselves, but they were giving up to their brothers and sisters. That's the general context. The more specific context I also quoted in the khutbah. There's a very beautiful hadith where the Prophet ﷺ was sitting in his masjid and his companions were sitting around him. And a new Muslim came from outside of Medina. He did hijrah to Medina because he had just come into Islam. And the Prophet ﷺ asked, who will host my guest? And so a man from among the Ansar stood up and said, Ya Rasulullah, I will host him. And the man rushes to his house and he finds his wife and he asks her, what do we have to give to our guests? And she shows him the amount of food was barely enough to suffice him and his family. And she told him, I have been waiting for you to come home because our children have been hungry, but I didn't want to eat without you. And so he told her, we're going to host the Prophet's guests. So I want you to put the kids to sleep without feeding them. Put them to sleep hungry. When they're asleep, close out the lights. And then you and I, we're going to sit with our guests. We're going to put the food in front of them, and we're going to put empty plates in front of us. And we're going to pretend to eat so that they don't feel any embarrassment or shame that they're taking our food. The next morning when he went back to the Prophet ﷺ, he found the Prophet smiling. And he told him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saw what you did last night, and He laughed out of His pleasure. And He guarantees you a place in Jannah for what you did. And some of the ulama say this hadith was why this ayah was revealed specifically. Because this companion was willing to give up not just his food, but his children's food to host a guest of the Prophet ﷺ. This is the manifestation of ithar that the Ansar were being praised for. Now there's a lot of, this ayah has caused me this month a lot of consternations. Why I chose to give the khutbah on it. It's caused me to really question a lot about me. And the impetus for it was not these ahadith. It was our brothers and sisters in Gaza. I was listening to some political commentary about why some of the other countries weren't able to move in to support our brothers and sisters in Gaza. And every country has an excuse. Most of them are around economics. That like if they were to take an action, sanctions would be put against them and their economies would suffer greatly. And so the question has to be asked, how serious is this ummah's commitment to one another? And forget about judging other people. We have to ask ourselves this question, how serious is our commitment to our brothers and sisters in this ummah? Now I'm going to ask some very difficult questions, but I've been asking myself this question. You know, we often say, I give everything I can possibly give lillah. But we have to be very honest with ourselves about that statement. What does it mean, everything I can possibly give? Because Allah is saying about the Ansar here, they were willing to give up even their basic comforts lillah. How many of us live in homes that are comfortable but probably bigger than we really need? Where we could downsize and the savings that we have could be given lillah, could be given to this ummah. How many of us drive cars that we could downsize or we could bring down a peg or two so that we're not paying $600, $700, $800 a month. Maybe we're paying a few $100s a month, or maybe we just buy an old beater that gets us from point A to point B perfectly fine. We don't need to worry about the way we look. But that extra money goes lillah. How many of us spend money on vacations every year that we could do without, our children can do without, our wives could do without, and that money can go to support this masjid, or could go to support any one of the many initiatives. You know, I know of 3 different packs that have been launched in the last 2 years, specifically packs that are meant to counteract the AIPAC lobby in this country. And all of them have been calling me saying, we have been struggling to find the money from this community. We can't actually fund these packs that we want. The wealthy among us don't give. And those who are not as wealthy among us only give in small amounts, and they don't really see the value in giving in this regard. I'll end with this point, inshallah, just because I know we're all exhausted. A lot of young men normally talk about money like they want to be Uthman. And they'll say that, I want to be like Sayyidina Uthman, who made all of this money and then gave caravan after caravan after caravan fi sabilillah. But that Uthmani spirit was developed long before. That story of him giving up caravan after caravan, that was in the Battle of Tabuk. That was the last battle that the Prophet ﷺ took part in. Uthman radiallahu anhu had been with the Prophet ﷺ all the way back from Mecca. Uthman was a muhajir. What that means is, Uthman gave up everything in his life for this deen. And then Allah rebuilt up his wealth, and Uthman gave it all back up again, and then Allah gave him again, and Uthman gave it up again. If you're serious about having the spirit of Uthman, it begins long before you actually have money. It begins now. I just have to cultivate that spirit. If I can give $1, I'll give it. If I can stretch it to $1.50, I'll stretch it. Even if it means I'm going to be a little hungry. Even if it means my children will be a little hungry. Even if it means that my wife will have to be a little unhappy. But we're going to develop this spirit of giving fi sabilillah so that we are people of ithar. And Allah will then empower this ummah through the spirit of ithar, just like He empowered the Prophet ﷺ through the spirit of ithar. Now, I said in the khutbah, and some people got mad at me for saying it, I said this is a level that not every Muslim will reach. And not every Muslim has to reach it. But the vanguard of this ummah, the people who the ummah is going to be saved on their backs, they will have this spirit. And so we're struggling. I put myself in with you. We all have to struggle to try to find this spirit. And if Allah inspires you to be one of those people, you will be among the most blessed on this earth. May Allah cultivate this spirit of ithar in our hearts. May He make us among those who give and give and give to our brothers before we give to ourselves. And when we find all of that giving, inshaAllah, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Jannatul Firdaus. Wa jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.